Michael, fifth and final tip, please.
All right, so my fifth and final tip. Now I'm looking at my notes, and there's 4 tips here. Now you'd think I'm looking at my document. The 5th one has been deleted, so you'll have to tell me. Before we talked, I shared this 5th one with you. It does exist.
Yeah, well.
So I remember. I think I remember it. I
Okay,
remember you said one of them was.
I have bad news for you because I'm looking at your same document because it's a shared one and you've cut it off. So it's a mystery to me. I can vaguely remember it, but it'll be a nice surprise for me what the 5th one is here.
Well, I remember before you told me that one of my tips wasn't as good as the other. And so we deleted that one. So I'm hoping I remember the right one. If this tip doesn't make sense, it's my fault. I mean, obviously it's my fault, but it's my fault in a bigger way. Anyway, I think what I wanted to say is I think that tip number 5 was when you call on a student, do not move on from that student until they have said something smart. Or
that's
correct.
It. That's
yeah,
it.
Okay, good. That's the good one? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another one of those habits that I'm trying to constantly remind myself of because I think it's a good one. I think it's something that I try to hold on to. It's one of those things that when I don't do it, I'm like, oh, I did it again. I moved on from a kid, and the last thing they said was wrong, and that didn't feel right.
How'd you do it, Michael? To talk us through this as an example.
Well, what I used to do is I'd call on a kid and I'd say, some of the times I ask questions like the ones before, like what are 2 numbers that add up to 10? That seems to be the one that's safe territory for me in this interview. I can always go back to that question. And so I say that, and kids like 1 and 3. So a very easy thing to do that I find myself falling into sometimes is I'll say, no, that's not right. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Who else has an idea? Which just trying to steer away from the 1 plus 3 idea, which is not true. 1 plus 3 is not 10. So what do you do in those situations? And so what I've tried to do is I've tried to and just to add on to why, what's going on there, right? Because teachers are good people. I think what's going on there is, at least psychologically for me, I hear, 1 plus 3 is not 10. And I think to myself, oh no, I need to get away from this situation. This is an embarrassing situation for this child. The more time I dwell on this child's mistake, the more embarrassing it's going to be. This child is going to, I'm going to, right? And there's so many bad ways to do it, right? 1 plus 3, I'd say, no, what is 1 plus 3 though? And they'd say 10. Because they just said that 1 plus 3 is 10. And I'll say, no, but can you, okay, start with 1. Let's walk you through it. And what's 1 plus 1? 2. What's 1 plus 2? And it's going to go badly. And everybody will, and there'll be snickers. There'll be kids going, while this kid's doing, there'll be whispers. And then a kid behind him will be like, say 10. Say 10. Say 1 plus 9. Say 4. Because kids are trying to save, because they're also nice, trying to save their friends from embarrassment. Okay, so every instinct in my head is saying get away from the situation, and yet I think that's sad because then you haven't given this kid a chance to be smart, and the last thing they've said is something wrong, and we don't even know if they're going to learn anything from it. So what can we do? So my goal now in those situations, I try to remind myself, let's get this kid to smart territory, and let's end when this kid says something smart, because if you say something smart, it doesn't matter what you said before that was wrong. That's fine. You've learned something and you said something smart. You're part of the community of smart people. We all understand math. We're all working on this together, but we're ending in the same direction. So how do I do that? How do I get this kid to say something smart? That's what's in my head. And I've got a couple moves. I don't have a ton, but one thing I do is I correct it for the kid, and then I shift to explanation. So I'll say, actually, 1 plus 3 is not 10, it's 4. Can you prove that it's 4? If I think that the kid can do it. Why does it make sense that it's 4, actually? And it's a little bit risky still because the kid might not know. But very often, if you choose your battles correctly, the child, in my experience, has been able to say, oh, right, it's 4. Oh, yeah, because 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. And there we go. Yes, brilliant. That's absolutely right. So can anyone build on what Ari has said? He's proven that 1 plus 3 is 4. So 1 plus what would be 10? And I can it feels better. It feels better. The kids learn something. I've corrected it. And I think that's an example of how what feels like it might be meaner in some ways to say, no, that's wrong, can actually be kinder as long as it's not the end of the story. So quick correction and then new question, or sometimes an explanation, is powerful in my experience. So the paradigm is like wrong answer from a kid, quick correction from me, quick follow-up question that the kid can successfully answer now that they've hopefully realized something from feedback, and then we move on.
I love it, Michael. Did you say you had a couple of moves? Was that the 2 moves? Is it kind of quick correction followed by a follow-up question and quick correction followed by asking them for an explanation, or is there another move up your sleeve here?
That's the one that works the best. I think the other things that I do, I think more teachers would I think recognize as like familiar territory. You say, what's the other one? Yeah, kid says 1 plus 3. You say, no, what's 1 plus 2? That kind of thing is I think, trying to get a kid to realize the mistake that they've made by asking a question that you think that they can answer on their own is, I think, more familiar territory. This is new to me. This is something that I don't know, that I need to keep my eye out for in my own teaching and see what comes up and try to kind of see what other moves I do have. If there's anything else that seems to work.
I love this, Michael. And just one final reflection for me on this. One of the things I find myself doing a lot, or found myself doing a lot, is what Doug Lemov calls rounding up. So this idea that a student says a wrong or an incomplete answer, and you as a teacher have the critical part to make that answer right. And it feels great in the moment, but then you think, you know what, this isn't good, because the kid thinks they've actually understood something when in fact they haven't really. They've given like the incomplete answer. And then you've added the kind of key bit, and it's not checking for understanding. It's kind of a bit of a cover up where everyone's involved. But the thing about rounding up is the kid feels good at the end of it. But what I like about what you're saying here is you're not, you're making it clear that answer's wrong. You're also not moving on to say, okay, I'm going to come back to you. Let me ask some other child, because the kid's feeling a bit bad about themselves there. I like this idea that you're being really open and genuine, but you're giving them that other opportunity to feel successful in a genuine way. It feels really powerful. It's not rounding up, but it's not kind of almost like no opt-out. It's not right, you've got it wrong, but keep listening because I'm going to come back to you. It feels like this is a different strategy to that has the best of both worlds. You've got your kind of understanding, but you've also got the kind of motivational, positive feeling. I don't know if any of that makes sense at all.
No, it makes sense. The thing I would add is that I think what makes this possible for me is when I started having a better understanding of types of questions that I ask. It opened things up, because if the only question you're asking is the only learning question you're asking is what's the answer, what's an answer, then you are kind of stuck if a kid says something wrong, or you can try to find a right answer. But when you expand things to explanation questions or generalization making questions, when you have a repertoire of another thing that I'll do is a quick correction, and then if the kid seems to be like, oh yeah, I'll be like, so why is that wrong? What's wrong with that? You just realized that it was wrong. Share that, please. Yeah. That's another. Once you can rattle off, which I feel lately that I'm better able to do. Like, okay, well, you can answer a question, you can explain why something's right, you can explain why something's wrong, you can extend a question, you can do a what if question. When you have a repertoire of questions that you ask, then okay, we've knocked down one possibility for a kid. There's still, 4 or 5 others that we could ask this child to answer that they are potentially capable of. And potentially now, especially capable of now that they have realized, oh, that's wrong. So I do agree. I do kind of, I think you nailed it. We're trying to have kids rounded up, I suppose. I mean, rounding up is not the image I guess I would use here at all. We're trying to orient everybody in the same positive direction, towards learning, towards understanding, towards contributing to our collective understanding. And a tool for doing that is giving feedback. And here's a Lamavian thing: normalizing error. I mean, that's not just him, but normalizing error is part of the tool here, right? If error is a big deal, then we have to kind of like veer our way. But if it's just like, no, that was wrong, but let's talk about something, something related to that. And just add on, because I kind of waffled a little bit earlier because I don't have a perfect understanding of how. I don't know if you feel this way. I feel like when I'm teaching, things come up, and then I have to kind of like sift through it over the course of the subway ride home or whatever, and try to be like, did I do that? Does that work? Should I try that again? So I think another thing that I'm realizing as we're talking about this and I'm reflecting on this is, right, a quick correction sometimes works, but in the situations where that doesn't work, sometimes a longer correction still sets things up for the child, right? Right? 1 plus 3 is not 10, it's 4. There's no aha that I hear. There's no, oh. I'm like, right? Because 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 3 is 4. So what would 1 plus 4 be? Child, right? Right? I've got a better shot there. If I've said a little bit more. So my correction can be quick, it can be longer, but I'm always trying to end with the child saying something true.
Fantastic, Michael.